Today I'm going to be making the Luna sling. This is from Craftsfullymade, and I've made this sling several times and I really like how it comes together. Also want to note that she has a full tutorial on this bag, and it's wonderful to see a designer with a tutorial because you really get to know exactly how they want this bag to come together. Since I'm using a woven, I will be making a few changes to different pieces, specifically the back zipper pocket, so a couple of my pattern pieces will look a little bit different. I am planning on using this webbing. It is a 1.5 inch webbing. I'm using zipper tape from So Majestic, sewing string from Wizardry. My hardware is going to be from Atelier. Both my exterior and my lining prints will be from J&R Edwards. I'm going to have the links for the pattern and my supplies in my description. All of my materials are cotton and everything is interfaced with the SF101. Currently, that's all I have. If there's any point where I feel like I need just a little bit extra, I can add extra to it. This bag is a bound bag, so there will be a point whenever I add the lining and the exteriors wrong sides together, and if I think, okay, this needs a little bit more structure, you can always put in a piece of foam, fleece, Decaville light, whatever at that point. So let's go ahead and start sewing this bag. The first thing I'm going to do to get this pattern started is I'm going to pull out the strap connector or strap holder, not for sure what it's called, but it is this piece right here, and you will have two of these. Mine is a cotton woven just with the SF101. The pattern tells us we're going to make two lines to start with down the sides, the long edges of this piece. You will fold the raw edge to that line on both sides. You can use double-sided tape here. I typically just use a glue stick. Since I'm using a cotton woven, I'll put the glue stick on here and then just take it over the iron, and that will keep it laying flat and secure. I've already glued those sides down and pressed them to the line on this piece. So this is how this will look. You'll still have this top edge that you will need to fold down to. So what I'll do with this is I'll just add the glue and then fold this raw edge down to that line. And that way all the edges will be tucked completely in. I'm going to go off camera and get both of the sides done like this one, and then both of the tops done. I'll come back to show it to you, and then we'll go on to the next step. I have both of these pieces folded, and I do have them glued down. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them wrong sides together and match everything up. We're going to sew down just the long edges, leaving the top and the bottom open. The benefits of constructing this connector this way is that this edge is going to be finished. We won't do anything to it until we're at the end of the pattern, and then we can slip our webbing in here, top stitch, and even rivet to secure that webbing in place. This allows us to construct the entire bag without that webbing being in the way. At the end, we add it, and we can make sure that it doesn't get twisted, that we have the adjustable bar on correctly, all of those steps, and we don't have to worry about fighting with it when we're doing all the construction. So you can clip those together, but basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to top stitch down each long side. I'm going to make sure I keep everything in line, and we always back stitch when we start and stop. Now that we have top stitched down both long sides, we are going to set this aside until we need it later in the pattern. The next step in the pattern is actually to work some with the webbing, but I'm going to skip ahead to start working on that pocket. This is the pocket that's going to be on the front. You can have a left or right slanted pocket. You can choose. The pattern does tell you which way you should position your pattern pieces if you want a right or left pocket. So the way I'm doing mine is a left slanted pocket. And so I'm using the pattern pieces right now to create that left side of my pocket. So I have an exterior left piece and a left interior piece. I have my zipper tape. So I will attach this zipper to these long straight pieces, not the piece with the curve. I'm going to start by basting my zipper tape onto the lining piece. I'm just going to add the zipper to that straight edge and baste in place. I did cut my zipper longer than necessary, and I don't have my pull attached to it yet. Once you have that lining basted to the zipper, then you're just going to take your exterior piece and place it right sides down with both the zipper and that lining piece. Match up the bottom and the long edge, and then sew in place, this time with the full seam allowance. Make sure you back stitch when you start and stop. Once I have those two pieces sewn together, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip them so they are wrong sides together, and I'm just going to press that seam and top stitch. So I will just top stitch 1/8 of an inch away all down that edge that we just sewed. I want to be careful that I'm pulling everything to make sure everything's laying flat. That lining will sometimes want to creep underneath, and we don't want it. We want everything to be nice and flat so it matches up evenly. Now that we have the left side of that pocket sewn, it's time to add the right side. So once again, I will have a right interior and a right exterior. The good thing about this pattern is that we have separate pattern pieces for the right interior and exterior. We're going to sew this right side the same way we sewed the left side. We're just going to make for sure that we're really careful that we're matching up not only this long edge, but also the top and the bottom. So I'm just flipping it over so that I can see that everything is matching up correctly on mine, and it is. And then that's the way I'm going to base that into place. Like I said, you can use double-sided tapes, clips, whatever makes it a more enjoyable sew for you. So my lining was sewn on, and the lining was right sides up. I laid this zipper tape on it right sides up and just basted down that edge. Now I will come in with this exterior piece and I will place it right sides down. So that means it'll be right sides together with everything. The lining, this left side of the pocket, and the zipper tape. Definitely want to make for sure I take the time to match up the bottom and the top and this long zipper edge. You're going to sew with the full seam allowance on this side. Once you have the right side pieces sewn together, go ahead and flip them so they're actually on the right and the wrong sides together. You're going to pull, separate, and you're going to top stitch just like you did on the previous side. So we'll top stitch 1/8 of an inch away from the other side of the zipper and directly on that exterior right piece. Now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and add my zipper pull. Of course, I want it closing to the top. The top is the one with the slant, not with the curved rounded edge. So my zipper pull will close the top, and I'm going to trim up this zipper tape. I'll do that off camera, and then we'll come back to complete the next step. I have everything trimmed up, the zipper pull attached. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out that vertical zipper pocket backing piece. That should be a lining piece, and it's going to be slanting the same way as this piece. So lay it on your table right sides up, and then just simply lay this pocket piece on top right sides up. It should fit perfectly, and we're just going to baste all the way around this piece so they'll be secure. This is going to be what you'll see whenever you open your pocket, your zipper pocket here. So I have everything basted around. I did go ahead and trim everything up too, so everything's ready to go on this piece. Now the pattern tells us to draw a line across the top. The pattern tells us how far down we measure to make that line. That line is where we are going to add this contrast piece. What I am going to do though is I'm going to take this bottom edge and I'm going to place it directly on the line. I expect to have overhang on this piece. You want to leave that overhang. Do not try to trim it off until later in the pattern. I also made this mark using something that I can remove later because it could be seen after we sew this on. If you don't have anything that can be used, just make sure then that you definitely cover it up with this piece. So what I'll do is I'll center my contrast, which I'm using webbing on, and I'm just going to sew along the bottom, just 1/8 of an inch away. This upper part will still be unattached. If this is a place where you feel a little uncomfortable, you can use glue or double-sided tape, whatever makes the sew more enjoyable for you. Now that we have this contrast piece attached at the bottom, this is what it looks like from the back. You can see it's still unattached here at the top. Now let's go ahead and pull out the exterior slip pocket piece. This is how it looks from the front. On the back, the pattern tells us to draw a line all the way across the top. The pattern does give us a measurement for us to draw this line. Once again, we are going to fold the raw edge there at the top down to meet that line. You can use double-sided tape. I'm going to use a glue stick, and I'm going to go over to the ironing board to have that pressed down. I will come back and show you what it looks like, and then we'll go on to the next step. Here is that exterior slip pocket piece with the top edge folded down and pressed into place. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to place these wrong sides together, and I'm matching up the top edge. You can see I'm going to come in here to this side, still expecting to have that overhang, but I want to match up this side of the pocket and that top edge. Let's put a clip right there and continue on down this top edge, pulling them to match. This is how my piece looks. I know I still have some overhang there. That's okay. I also have some overhang at the bottom. I'm not worried about that either. What I'm going to do is I'm going to top stitch all along this top edge to connect these two pieces. I have a little bit poking up here. Whenever I'm sewing it, I'm going to make sure, or try my best to make sure, that I don't see any of that slip pocket lining showing from this front piece. I am not adding a magnetic snap to this pocket. I didn't in the other ones I made, and I feel like it's completely okay to skip that step. Definitely want to point out that if you do want to add it, that's the next few steps you will need to do following the pattern. Since I'm not doing that, I can go ahead and baste this in place and then trim it up afterwards using the pocket template piece. If you are adding a magnetic snap, do not baste around until after you add that snap on yours. I am sewing 1/8 of an inch away from this top all the way across, trying to make sure that I keep everything in line, but that I don't have a big amount of that slip pocket piece showing through. I'm going to use the pocket template pattern piece. I'm going to use it to trim things up. I'm not going to trim up my contrast though on the sides here. I'm mainly just going to focus on trimming up the sides and the bottom. We want to leave a little bit here at the top because the way this pattern is designed is we want just to have a little bit of extra depth on this slip pocket, so we want it to be slightly bigger than the exterior piece. So don't trim this up yet. We will still have it to use later. But I wanted to show you that you match it at the top. Do not do any trimming at the top. Do not trim your contrast piece, and just get some trimming done at the bottom of the sides. After using that pocket template, go ahead and pull out your front exterior piece. I did add a tag to mine just for a little bit something extra. Go ahead and take that pocket piece and line up at the bottom. Add some clips there, and then you should have enough room to kind of pull in this side on each of the sides to give this front pocket a little bit of a lift. If you don't like that lift, you could always just leave it flat and baste it there. It's kind of a personal preference, but the lift is designed to let you have a little bit of extra room to store things in on this front pocket. The designer also tells us that lift kind of helps the design of the bag so it doesn't kind of sink in on itself after everything's constructed. I'm going to start working on that back piece now. I want to add the zipper pocket on the back piece, but since I'm using a cotton woven, I cannot do mine the way the pattern designer does hers, with just cutting out a zipper box and sewing the zipper pocket in there. So what I'm going to do is a more traditional way you make a zipper pocket whenever you're using cotton woven. So I took those pattern measurements for the zipper pocket pieces, and I just made one really long one. I'm going to place it right sides down, so it's right sides together with that back exterior. I have it about 1 inch or so from the bottom, and then I just use a zipper template ruler to draw my box on. I'm going to be really careful. I even shortened my box because I don't want my zipper to be in the seam allowance. I don't want to add any extra bulk to the sides of this bag. After I sew around the box, then I will just push this lining through, and then we will add the zipper and fold it and do those steps. So mine's a little bit different than the Pattern Designer. If you're using a vinyl or a raw edge material, you don't have to make any of those changes like I'm making. Since I'm worried about this being perfectly straight, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to the back and I'm going to kind of measure, go over to my cutting mat, make sure that everything looks straight before I cut into this box. If anything needs adjusted, then I could do it. Once I make the cuts through the middle, then I can't adjust it at all. So I'm going to go off camera, measure, make sure everything looks correct, and then I'm going to cut a hole in the middle, push my lining through. So I'll cut all the way down the middle of this, and then I will take over the ironing board. When I come back, it'll be ironed and pressed flat. Now that I have that opening pressed and the lining pushed through, I'm going to go ahead and add the zipper with the pull already attached on it. So I'm going to make for sure that I leave the lining open, and then I'm just going to center the zipper tape in that box. I'm going to make sure I have an even amount on both sides. I'll have to trim mine up, and then I'm just going to sew around the perimeter of this box to attach the zipper to this back panel. Now that you have your zipper attached, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip over to the lining side and then just pull the lining down. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to sew as close as I can to the opening of the box. Sew down one side across the bottom and up the other side again as close as I can to that box. I'm going to go ahead and trim up the extra all around this zipper pocket piece. Take your zipper pocket piece and make sure that it's raised up and out of the way for this next step. What we're going to do is we're going to attach the D-ring bar or this connector bar, and this will be what attaches the bottom of the sling too. You can use a contrasting piece of fabric, you can use the same fabric, whatever you want. I just grabbed a piece of webbing and that's what I'm going to use. Now the pattern gives us a really cool way to do this. What you do in the pattern is you use snaps to have in place here, and you only use one D-ring, and you will snap the D-ring into place on this side, or if you want to wear it on this side, you'll snap it over here. That's a really cool idea. I love the design. I'm just not doing it, so I'm just going to do it this traditional way. The pattern does tell you how to do it, but instead I'm going to sew, maybe place a rivet or two, but probably right now just sew a box using the pattern measurements. So I'm going to measure up from the bottom so that I know where to place this strap. I'm going to put a D-ring on each side, and so I'm going to use the pattern measurements to know where to sew each end to kind of have a casing for this D-ring so they're not just going everywhere, and that will be how I do mine. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to baste this connector into place, and then I'm going to sew on the other side so that mine are fixed and not moving, and I'm getting that measurement as to where to sew from the pattern. The last thing you'll want to do with this back piece is go ahead and flip that pocket back down, and let's add that connector there at the top. The raw edge is what's going to go here at the top. You're going to center it into place, and then you will baste this raw edge there. Just remember that the finished edge is going to go towards the bottom. If it matters with your strap, mine doesn't matter, they're both the same side, but if it matters, you'll want to have your right side of this connector piece facing up. We have the front and the back exterior done. Let's go ahead and just add some slip pockets to our lining pieces, then we can attach them to our exteriors. To make the slip pocket for the interior piece, you're going to fold the raw edges to the inside. You draw a line and then you fold those raw edges in. Since I'm using a cotton woven, I did choose to use a glue stick to adhere mine down with the iron. Once you get those in place, whether you use double-sided tape or glue, then you just simply fold the slip pocket, wrong sides together, and match everything up. I'm going to add a few clips on the side. To cover up this raw edge of the top, I'm just going to grab a piece of ribbon, or you can cut a piece of trim from your exterior or something that is non-fraying. And what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to fold this in half to wrap it around that top edge, and then I'm going to top stitch it in place. You can use double-sided tape here if you wanted to, but I'm just simply going to fold it over. After you have it clipped on, just go ahead and top stitch that trim on. You don't need to top stitch down the sides or across the bottom, because you will do that whenever you attach the pocket to the lining piece. So this is just top stitching across the top. I'm going to do about 1/8 of an inch away from that raw edge. You could also do 2 lines if you wanted to for better security. I'm going to trim up my overhang, and I'm also going to use the lighter to kind of cinch the edges so that I won't have any fraying later. Pull out one of your lining pieces, and you're just going to place your slip pocket on this lining piece, centering it, and the pattern tells you how far down from the top you're going to place it. Once you have it in place, sew on both sides and across the bottom to attach it to your lining piece. I'm just going to sew about 1/8 of an inch away. Then if you want, you can repeat these same steps to add a slip pocket to the other side of your lining piece. Once you have this lining piece done, you can pull out your front or your back to attach it. At this point, just feel to see if you like the way the structure is. For me, this front pocket gives plenty of structure, so I'm not worried about adding anything else to it as far as in interfacing or stabilizer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place these 2 pieces wrong sides together, add a few clips, and then I'm just going to baste around to have them both attached. Now that you have your lining and your exterior front, go ahead and do the same thing with the back. That will have your main panels complete. The next thing we need to do is work on our gusset, and then we can work on attaching everything and putting the bag together. To make our gusset, we're first going to start with the zipper panels. You should have 2 exterior, 2 lining, and a piece of zipper tape. I have my zipper tape longer than my zipper panels, and I don't have the pulls attached yet. The first thing I do is I pull out one of the lining pieces, I take my piece of zipper tape, and I have both of these right sides facing up. I lay the zipper on top of that lining piece, matching up that long edge and making sure that I have about an even amount on both sides. I just baste this on with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. This step is unnecessary, and you can skip it and do a traditional zipper sandwich with the exterior if you would prefer. Now that you have the lining attached, go ahead and grab one of your exterior pieces, and if yours is directional, make sure you orientate it the way you want. Then place it right sides together. You're going to match up both the short and the long sides with the lining piece. This time you're going to sew along that same top edge, but you're going to be attaching all 3 pieces and using the full seam allowance. Once you get those attached, go ahead and flip these wrong sides together, baste down the raw edge, and then top stitch down the folded sewn edge. I'll do both of those at 1/8 of an inch apart. I have the first side attached, both the exterior and the lining. What I'm going to do is I'll repeat those same steps for the other 2 pieces to attach to the other unsewn edge of the zipper. After I get these attached, I will add my zipper pulls and then trim down the extra zipper tape. Now that we have both of the zipper panels attached to the zipper, it's time to add that bottom gusset piece so we can finish up the gusset to attach to the bag. With your zipper panel pieces right sides up, take your exterior piece, place it right sides down, matching up that short edge, and then lift this up and place the lining right sides together too. If you have overhang like I do on mine, make sure you have it centered so you can trim it up evenly on both sides. Once you have these clipped together, go ahead and sew with the seam allowance across these pieces to connect all 3. After you have those sewn together, separate the 2 base pieces, the 2 gusset pieces, Pull them tightly and go ahead and top stitch across that seam. Take your exterior piece, the free edge that's not sewn, and pull all the way to the other side of your zipper panels. Clip that one into place. Take the free edge of the lining and bring it over to the free edge of the lining piece and have them right sides together. Clip that in place with the exteriors and then sew again with that seam allowance given in the pattern. We are going to put these in a loop. At this point, I'm going to top stitch down this seam, but I'm also going to baste these base pieces together. I have the gusset done. It's all one complete loop now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim my extra on the zipper panels. I'm also going to find my quarter marks on this gusset as well as on my front exterior panel. Then I'll clip this gusset right sides together with the front exterior panel, and I'll do all that off camera, but I'll come back to show you what it looks like and then we'll sew it together. So I have my gusset completed and attached to the front of the bag, right sides together. I clipped all the way around, and the gusset, even from the first ones I did, I remembered it being a very tight fitting gusset, and I did on my original ones and this one have to make tiny snips into these curves to kind of get it to spread out a little bit so that we have a good fit on the gusset. The way I'm going to do this is I'm first going to sew all the way around the perimeter of the bag with just 1/8 of an inch stitch. This is just to baste everything into place. If I need to use my stiletto or even my hemisteps to kind of pull to keep this as close as I can in line here around this curve, I'll do that. After I have that basting stitch sewn together, then what I'll do is I'll come back in with the full seam allowance whenever I'm attaching the binding. I'm not going to show the binding steps. I'm just going to show the one time going around with the basting stitch because I have several videos on binding, and I'll bind this side and this other side, and there's no point in making you watch me go around the bag several times. So after I do this basting stitch, I'll go off camera and sew the rest of the bag, and I'll come back to show you what it looks like before I turn it to look at the finished bag. So here's how the gusset looks. Everything's attached. I'm going to do the binding and sew with the full seam allowance and then repeat those same steps for the other side, and I'll come back to show you how it looks before I turn it right sides out. So I have my Luna sling bound, everything's done. I'm just ready to turn it right sides out, and then the only thing I have left to do is the strap. So my back looks great. I definitely need to do some clipping all around my seams to kind of get everything compressed and laying the way I want. No problems, I can do that. The last thing I need to do is to finish up the strap. So let's pull out the strap, and I'm just going to show you how it is. So the first thing I need to do is I need to get my webbing nice and neat there on the edge. I'm just going to use a regular lighter to kind of melt that ends so that I don't have any problem with it fraying, or I should say less of a problem with it fraying. Then I just slip it inside that opening. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew across here. You can add a ribbon also if you want. The next thing you need to do is you need to add an adjustable bar and a swivel hook. I'm not going to sew this into place because I only have an adjustable bar that doesn't match. I want to get one that matches and looks really nice. So I will order that, but for this video I want to show you how it'll look. So I feed the adjustable bar on, and then on the other edge I go ahead and add the swivel hook, making sure not to get everything twisted. After I have the swivel hook on, I take the other edge, I take that free edge again, and I slide it back through this adjustable bar. The pattern tells you to cut out a piece of trim for the end of this to kind of finish this edge off with the webbing. You can definitely do that if you want. I'll just make sure I have mine melted and fold it under twice. I will go ahead and melt this edge again to get that secured a little bit. Fold it under twice and then attach it to the other side of this webbing. Like I said, I'm not sewing this right now because I want to get matching hardware, but I just want to show you how it kind of looks and how you get it all put together. So to finish this bag up, I would need to sew across here and then sew across the edge of the webbing to have this bag finished and ready to wear. Since I'm not going to do that now, I'm going to go ahead and take this off just so we can look inside and talk a little bit more about the bag. So with this pattern, you have a slip pocket here in the front, you have a zipper pocket here on the side. This is a smaller zipper pocket. This zipper pocket would be good for like gum, chapstick, keys, whatever you would want to kind of keep close so that you know where it is. This would be a good spot for a phone or a small wallet. Water bottle would fit in there easily. And then when you open it up on the inside, it opens really nice and has a really wide opening. You have a slip pocket on one side. Come around to the back and you have another zipper pocket here. The name of this pattern is called the Luna Swing. The designer is Craftsfullymade, and that business is run by Rita. Rita is a wonderful lady who does great patterns. All of her patterns are really nice, well-written patterns. She is very particular. She goes through every step and she really wants to take the time to get a really nice result on a bag. My fabrics are from J&R Edwards, Tag, Heartwood, and Hyde, Zipper Tape So Majestic. My hardware is from Altelia. I'm going to have a link to everything in my description. And I hope today in your sewing room you're able to revisit a pattern that you like. And if you want to change up some things with it to make it your own or to sew a bag that fits your needs better, definitely do that. Don't be afraid to play around and make your own style on a bag or use techniques that feel just more comfortable, more fun to sew in your sewing room. Thanks so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.